You're listening to Razorcast, USA's hottest podcast, bringing you cutting-edge interviews from leading industry professionals.
Hello, everyone. This is Liz Harvey coming to you from our studios in New York City, where we are dedicated to bringing you cutting-edge interviews from many of the leading industry professionals across the U.S. In today's episode, we are speaking with Stephanie Heinzeler. Stephanie is a German-educated midwife, a U.S.-educated doula, an acupuncturist, and she is a certified lactation counselor. She is known as the New York Doula. Stephanie has delivered over 1,200 babies and has experience with twins, triplets, breech babies, and water births. She also works with newborn parents in their postpartum stage and holds classes and seminars for moms and dads to be. With a wealth of experience and knowledge in her field, Stephanie Heinzeler is widely considered to be one of the top doulas in the country. She is also a contributing member of our National Network of Industry Professionals. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic, baby formulas, how to choose the right one for your baby. Hello, Stephanie. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thanks for joining me. So, what ingredients and nutrients are in standard formula?
So, formulas are manufactured from non-human products. So, they're usually based on cow's milk. They don't have the immunologic components that breast milk has, and therefore there's no protection. So, all the protection that breast milk has from ear infections, pneumonia, bacteria, SIDS, and any other diseases, there's no protection because it's artificially manufactured. And the ingredients, they are required by the Food and Drug Administration. So all formulas need to go to them. And usually there's a base protein, for example, cow's milk. Sometimes it's soy. There's fat, there's essential fatty acids, vitamins like C or D or K. There's copper, iron, magnesium, thiamine, calcium, for example. And based on, depending on what kind of formula it is, the FDA requires that the content of these nutrients, especially vitamins, for example, they can't exceed a certain maximum level that they've established.
And what are some special formulas that are available?
So the most common formula is cow's milk formula, and that's the formula that babies should get first, unless they have, for example, diabetes in the family. So all formulas raise risk for any illnesses, unfortunately. Depending on what formula babies get, they're 3 to 4 times sick more often than when they're being fed with breast milk. So cow's milk is usually babies get sick 3 times more, and soy milk, unfortunately, 6 times more. However, if it's necessary to give formula, it's always recommended to start with cow's milk formula, unless there's diabetes in the family. So if there's diabetes in the family, then the baby should not get cow's milk formula because the risk for diabetes is much, much higher to get it as a child, diabetes type 1. And even if the child gets colics, for example, from the cow's milk formula, it's recommended to wait a few weeks until it's switched, or even, discuss with a CLC, like a lactation counselor or pediatrician, before the formula is being switched. Some babies react on formula because it's contaminated, so there's recall sometimes, or it's not prepared properly. Then we have, this counts for all the formulas. And besides the cow's milk formula, we have the hydrolyzed, that's, for example, used for families with diabetes. That's if the cow's milk protein is broken down even more, so it's hydrolyzed. Then there's soy milk formula, which is, for example, when the baby is very, very colicky on cow's milk and the baby is diagnosed with lactose intolerance. So it's very important to not just switch the baby to any kind of other formula, especially soy. Like some parents are like, oh, I'm just taking soy now. But unless the baby has a diagnosed lactose intolerance or galactosemia, or the family has some kind of ethical considerations, they're like vegan, otherwise so it's not recommended anymore because it has higher aluminum levels. So baby's tendency is to get more allergies later in life. They react poorer to vaccinations. So soy is really, I usually never recommend soy formula. I usually, when the baby is not not digesting cow's milk formula that well, we see what the diagnosis is. There's lactose-free formula, which is for babies with colics, diarrhea, or constipation. But lactose-free, unfortunately, also elevates the risk for diabetes type 1, and also there's no calcium in it, so that can be tricky, for childhood and later. So in the end, it's really, there's all these different ones, lactose-free and soy and hydrolyzed and cow's milk, so you would discuss with your lactation counselor which formula is best.
And I know you just touched on this. So how can you tell if your baby should have lactose-free formula or another special formula?
The main thing is really to do a test. What we usually do is we start with cow's milk formula, and if the baby reacts badly every time after every feeding, right? So it's not once a day at 6 p.m. the baby has colics, which a lot of babies do have, but it's really related to the feeding. Then usually it's good to switch to hydrolyzed formula. Hydrolyzed, it's usually digested best. There's no long-term effects. They haven't done a lot of studies, so there's still a little bit of controversy, and also the taste of hydrolyzed formula is disgusting, apparently. But it's usually switching to that, and then soy or lactose-free after having, spoken to a lactation counselor or a pediatrician. There's a program in the city, the WIC program, which they have a nutritionist who can help. So they're a little bit more focused on babies who have issues. But then, the key is to see what's an intolerance and what's an allergy. Because for some, it's like, the baby has a little bit of whatever, gas or diarrhea. And intolerance is not the same. So if a baby, for example, would have an allergy to cow's milk, then we switch to hydrolyzed formula. But if a baby has an intolerance, then they should switch to soy. So, you need to see what's the diagnosis. Is it an allergy? Is it an intolerance? Is it bowel movement problems? Is it colics? What does the baby do in general? Does he spit up a lot? So that it's really important to get the diagnosis and to also not switch around. Like, I have my mom switch to a formula, and they stay on that for 4 weeks once they switched, because you don't ever want to get into this vulnerable child syndrome. Like, you keep switching the formula and the baby gets allergic just because you switched all the formula. So that would be the worst, but you really need to see where do we switch and, into which formula do we switch, and what do we do when that doesn't work, and when do we switch again?
And is it okay to mix powdered formula with tap water, or should parents use bottled water?
The first month it's recommended to use bottled water. In New York, we have pretty good water, so if it's filtered and the baby's healthy and at term, depending on the area in New York, usually pediatricians know that, or you call 311 in the city. They can give you some more information to know, whether your tap water is okay, but it should be filtered.
And lastly, I know you also touched on this, but should parents try to stick with one kind of formula, or is it okay to buy whatever's on sale?
That's an important question because, yes, you need to stick, but you want to make sure that if your baby is not reacting nicely to the formula, then of course you need to discuss what other formula to use. The thing with hydrolyzed formula, it's ridiculously expensive. It's 3 times as much as regular formula. So while I like to recommend it, if necessary, some can't afford it. It's really a lot. And so then we need to see what's possible, or if we can get to a program that they can get the formula paid for, but don't ever buy anything that's on sale, or whatever is the cheapest or so. In the end, it's the key to see which formula works, and also where you get it from. I mean, there's the FDA, but at the same time, there's not a lot of regulations. There's a lot of formulas that are based on corn syrup, which I would not give to my child. So it's important also as a mother or father to look into the ingredients, even of cow's milk or hydrolyzed or whatever, and see what other ingredients are in there that are resonating with, your values.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. We know you're extremely busy, so I just want to thank you for all of your time and help today.
Thanks for having me.
And for our listeners across the country, if you are interested in speaking with Stephanie Heinzeler, please visit www.thenewyorkdoula.com or call 917-399-2031 to schedule an appointment. And on behalf of our entire team, we want to thank you for listening, and we look forward to bringing you more top-quality content from our country's leading industry professionals.
You've been listening to RazorCast, USA's hottest podcast, bringing you cutting-edge interviews from leading industry professionals.